Welcome viewers. Do you know who is first in India? Test your IQ. 50 questions. Are you ready for the challenge? Come on, let's go. Before we go, subscribe our channel. Who was the first Prime Minister of India? The answer is option C, Jawaharlal Nehru. Who was the first President of India? The answer is option B, Rajendra Prasad. Who was the first Vice President of India? The answer is option C, Dr. S. Ratna. Who was the first Chief Justice of India? The answer is option A, H.J. Kania. Who was the first Speaker of the Lok Sabha? The answer is option A, G.V. Mavalankar. Who was the first Governor General of Independent India? The answer is option B, Lord Mountbatten. Who was the first Indian Governor General of Independent India? The answer is option A, C. Rajagopalachari. Who was the first Indian to win a Nobel Prize? The answer is option B, Rabindranath Tagore. Who was the first Indian woman to become the Prime Minister of India? The answer is option A, Indira Gandhi. Who was the first Indian woman to become the President of India? The answer is option A, Pratibha Patil. Who was the first Indian woman to climb Mount Everest? The answer is option A, Pachendri Pal. Who was the first Indian to go to space? The answer is option A, Rakesh Sharma. Who was the first Chief Election Commissioner of India? The answer is option A, Sukumar Sen. Who was the first Indian woman to win an Olympic medal? The answer is option C, Karnam Malleswari. Who was the first Indian to receive a Nobel Prize in Physics? The answer is option A, C.V. Raman. Who was the first Indian woman to become a Chief Minister of a state? The answer is option A, Suchita Kripalini. Who was the first Indian to win the Booker Prize? The answer is option B, Salman Rushdie. Who was the first Indian to win a gold medal at the Olympics? The answer is option A, Abhinav Bindre. Who was the first Indian woman to receive the Bharat Ratna? The answer is option A, Indira Gandhi. Who was the first chief of the Indian Army? The answer is option A, General K.M. Cariappa. Who was the first Indian woman to become an astronaut? The answer is option A, Kalpana Chawla. Who was the first Indian woman to become a judge of the Supreme Court? The answer is option C, Fatima Bibi. Who was the first Indian to win a Nobel Prize in Economics? The answer is option A, Amartya Sen. Who was the first Indian woman to win the Miss World title? The answer is option B, Reita Faria. Who was the first Indian woman to win the Miss Universe title? The answer is option C, Susmita Sen. Who was the first Indian to receive the Bharat Ratna? The answer is option A, C. Rajagobalachari. Who was the first Indian to become the Secretary General of the United Nations? The answer is option D, none. Who was the first Indian woman to become a pilot? The answer is option B, Sarla Tukral. Who was the first Indian to win the Raman Magsaysay Award? The answer is option A, Vinoba Bhave. Who was the first Indian woman to become a governor of a state? The answer is option A, Sarojini Naidu. The first Indian woman to become the Chief Justice of a High Court. The answer is option A, Leela Seth. Who was the first Indian to win an Oscar award? The answer is option B, Banu Attaya. Who was the first Indian woman to win a Grammy Award? The answer is option B, Tanvi Shah. Who was the first Indian to win the Nobel Peace Prize? The answer is option B, Mother Teresa. Who was the first Indian woman to receive the Padma Shri Award? The answer is option C, Amrita Sehgal. Who was the first Indian to be elected to the British Parliament? The answer is option A, Dadabhai Naoroji. Who was the first Indian woman to become an IAS officer? The answer is option B, Annarajam Malhotra. Who was the first Indian to circumnavigate the globe solo and non-stop on a sailboat? The answer is option A, Abhilash Tami. Who was the first Indian woman to become a pilot in the Indian Air Force? The answer is option B, Avani Chaturvedi. Who was the first Indian to win the Pricker Architecture Prize? The answer is B.V. Doshi. Who was the first Indian woman to win a gold medal at the Asian Games? The answer is P.T. Usha. Who was the first Indian to win the Janpat Award? The answer is option A, G. Sankara Kurup. Who was the first Indian woman to become a cabinet minister? The answer is option A, Rajkumari Amrit Kaur. Who was the first Indian to win a medal in the Paralympic Games? The answer is option A, Murlikant Petkar. Who was the first Indian woman to win the Booker Prize? The answer is option A, Arundhati Roy. Who was the first Indian woman to win an Olympic medal in boxing? The answer is MC Mary Kom. Who was the first Indian woman to win the Padma Vibhushan Award? The answer is option C, MS Subbulakshmi. Who was the first Indian to receive the Fields Medal? The answer is option D, none. No one has received. The first Indian woman to become the chief of the Indian Navy's medical service. The answer is option A, Punita Arora. Who was the first Indian woman to win the Arjuna Award? The answer is option A, N. Lumsden. Thank you for watching, viewers. Before you go, don't forget to subscribe our channel. Thank you very much.